Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Biznology Digital Marketing Webinar. I'm Frank Reed. I'm one of the bloggers here at Biznology. I'm the managing editor for Marketing Pilgrim blog, which is currently number 11 on the Ad Age Power 150. I'm also the director of business development for the Edgeworks Group, a boutique interactive agency based in Irvine, California. But today you'll be hearing from Chris Abraham, one of the bloggers at the Biznology blog, who will present how to take back your online reputation. But before we get going with Chris, I'd like to recognize our sponsors. We have Barn Raisers, which is a digital marketing and social media solutions company that builds brands using community and the proven principles of relationship marketing. We have Brick Marketing, a full-service SEO solutions company that increases website visitors. Then we have Marketing Pilgrim, as you heard of already, the internet and social media marketing news blog. We cut through the bull so you don't have to. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Reputation.com. Don't let the internet scare off potential customers. Improve what people see when they search for your business. Okay, so as we wait for more attendees to join, let me review the format of our webinar. Our Biznology webinars last just 30 minutes, so you can easily fit them into your busy schedule. We record each webinar, and we'll email you that link later this week. During our speaker's presentation, you can use your go to webinar controls to ask a question. That orange arrow opens and closes your webinar controls. If you have a question, simply type it in the box labeled questions at any time during the event and press the send button. I'll be able to select a few questions at the end of the webinar and pose them to Chris. Now, as we wait for our last few attendees to join us, I'd like to remind you that the Biznology newsletter and blog are available for free at biznology.com. And if you're not already a subscriber, we hope that you'll sign up now. So thanks again to all of you for spending 30 minutes with us. We know how valuable your time is, so let's introduce today's speaker. Chris Abraham is team lead of special projects at Reputation.com and a leading expert in online relationship management, internet privacy, and online public relations. He focuses on blogger outreach, blogger engagement, and internet crisis response. So if you've ever struggled with how to scrub bad news from internet search, this is the webinar for you. So Chris, take it away.
Chris, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I hear you.
Excellent. Thank you. The hashtag for today is BizRep, hashtag BizRep. I have been an online reputation consultant since 2003. I started with Reputation.com a few months ago, and please feel free to reach out to me in any capacity, any social network. I monitor them all, but because we only have 30 minutes, I will quickly move forward. So put on your seatbelts and let's take a ride. Introduction to Online Reputation Management. What exactly is ORM? It's what shows up in your search results. It's, if you will, the splatter painting of the behavior or lack of behavior of you and your brand online. Any kind of blog post you put up, any kind of social media, the kind of desperate aggregation and data mining that sites like Spokeo do. And it doesn't have to be anything that you've put up there. In fact, if you've been very careful to make sure that you haven't been online and that you've been very discreet, Google abhors a vacuum. So we're going to go into a lot of the things that affect your online reputation, which is pretty much your Google search results on page 1 and page 2 of Google, top 20 results. And we're going to go into how they look, how they turn out, how you can affect them, how you can influence them. Because unlike Wikipedia, which is being constantly edited by a group of editors, the internet, Google search is more, is filterless. There's no statute of limitation, and oftentimes the most sensational things lead first, just like traditional media. Here's some statistics. The funny thing is that 80% of reputation damage risks comes from the difference between who you are or who you see yourself and how you're reflected on search. That disconnection between your buzz and your reality, that dis-ease is what oftentimes drives people to reach out to me and to reputation.com. And because 75% of a company's value is based on their reputation, be it online reputation or not, that is a large proportion, and that is worthy of being at least aware of, and definitely worthwhile putting a lot of attention into responding to and influencing. And 92% of internet users read product reviews, and ironically, they'll go through upwards of 10 reviews to find the one that resonates with them. People are relatively low discernment when it comes to search results, but when it comes to looking for reviews, they spend a lot of time for the right one. How people search. I didn't believe this. Most people, over 50%, don't go past the top 2 results. Almost 90% don't go past the first page, and 99% of users don't get past the second page. So you are judged primarily not only by the first page, but by the first few results. People's eyes, as you can see from the heat map, people's eyes go down until they find what they need. And you didn't hear it from me, but when it comes to discernment, I was at the offices of ComScore, and people have very little discernment between sponsored ads and organic content, so that's important to know. The psychology of search has changed dramatically since there has been auto-loaded and pre-suggested search results. Now, just going ahead and having, putting in your search and say, I feel lucky, I'm feeling lucky is not good anymore, because Google automatically, based on its modern web AJAX real-time results, pre-packages not only its search but also the top search prepared results. In this case, Hugh Jackson, daughter, Bengals, fired. To be honest, it doesn't matter what's true anymore. It doesn't matter what's old news. It doesn't matter whether this is your past history. People prefer gossip. People look for the most interesting, scintillating, exciting stuff. And yeah, we trust what we read, even if we shouldn't. I just read an article that said, if you're still saying that you read it on the internet as a way of convincing someone that your argument is true, then you're a fool. Unfortunately, we're influenced in very subtle, very nefarious ways, and search algorithms can't fix the problem because people click on what they like, and what they like isn't necessarily the truth. An example is Vodafone. I mean, we have Comcast here with regards to Comcast sucks and Comcast cares, but when you feel like you can message yourself out of a hole, you might have done 10 years ago, but now there's no barrier to entry for anybody who wants to message against you. And the tools in their tool belt include video, audio, visuals, images, blogs, parody sites. The list goes on and on and on. You can't fight this just by having a strong messaging platform. So the kind of threats you're going to deal with on a daily basis. Grover Norquist, blog posts, critical news articles, and so forth. Even though he had a very strong 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 results, SourceWatch, Billionaire's Best Friends, content stay online for years, well past Grover Norquist's sensational interest by the news. unlike most news content by mainstream media, when you look at the Washington Post and New York Times, content doesn't go into archive readily. If the content is viable, if it's appealing, if it's optimized, and if people keep on clicking on it, that content can remain active. I like to call it hot donuts for years. Google likes hot donuts. Google likes things that are hot and spicy. Things don't automatically go into archive just because they're not relevant anymore. Like I said, old news can be good news. If one doesn't do a very good job of singing one's own song, you know, to quote Walt Whitman, if you don't sing the song of yourself, you are not going to be able to take over the first page of Google. You're not going to be able to take care of the second page of Google. And if Google finds that it cannot find what people who are searching are looking for, it'll dig deep. It'll dig far to the left and far to the right, and you'll get old news. Like I said, it's not like a blog post where it's reverse chronological order, where the best content comes to, the most recent content comes to the fore. If you've had a metanoia, if you've turned around and changed your life and become a radically good, forward-thinking, modern human being, attuned to the values of their customers and the values and higher values and morals, then it doesn't matter, because Google might find, and the people who search might find that old content more appealing. The same thing with mistaken identity. There's a lot of Chris Abrahams. Luckily, they're all pretty awesome. There's a director in Canada who's does play live theater named Chris Abraham, and he's cooler than me. I think there's like a high school baseball star. But if your doppelganger, if your namesake is doing terrible things on your behalf, it can easily reflect poorly on you. Key people can affect companies' reputation. For example, if there is a particularly exorbitant spending executive that you have in your company, and he's caught buying gold toilet fixtures or any type of these things, one person's reputation can very poorly influence the entire brand that you spent years building, and it's worthwhile putting energy into fixing that content, even if that person has long gone, is long behind you. And then, of course, these Google suggestions, Ingvar Kamprad, Nazi, I mean, and IKEA. People are curious about the rumors. Most people do not use search, search things like quotes or brackets. They don't use modifiers. So when people are looking for Chris Abraham, they generally just type Chris Abraham. However, these suggestions oftentimes add modifiers that people wouldn't have thought of, that invariably results in people finding the worst of you if that's up there to be found. Litigation makes it worse. You might think that throwing lawyers at the problem might be good, but unfortunately, scandal is, I mean, you know, if it bleeds, it leads. If it's scandal, it's going to be appealing. So the more you put fuel to the fire, as we learn in the communication world, the best communicators, the best PR people are the people who know when to hold fire, know when to walk away, know when to run. The common mistakes, and I apologize if we're moving so quickly, but we only have half an hour, and it took me 20 minutes to try to figure out how to turn off the mute, so please bear with me. We can always answer your questions if I'm moving too fast later. ORM is not SEO. Online reputation management is not search engine optimization. What that means is no matter how much you optimize your personal brand page, your personal website, you are only going to get, if you'll notice, the green area. Google made it a lot easier for people who have awesome architecture, and Google understands the architecture of your site. You get what is almost like 1, 2, 3, 4 results, but you don't get any further than that. So at a certain point, you are going to either need to increase the flotilla, you know, which is basically roping up a bunch of other floating vessels until you can go ahead and create something much larger, preferably 20 vessels to take up the top 2 pages. Because no matter how optimized your website is, forums, message boards, groups, blogs, mockumentaries, YouTube, all these things are amazingly SEO'd, are optimized for organic search too. So beware. SEO is not ORM. Think about it this way. SEO spends inordinate resources focusing on optimizing one website that you own and you can change, whereas ORM is almost like optimizing everybody else's website that is positive or neutral, so as to bring that content up and bubble negative stuff down. Will not review agreements, the good old gag orders, do not work because things bubble up. If there's something to gag, then there's something to find. And just by virtue of someone saying, no comment, I am withheld by a non-disclosure agreement from talking about this, means that there is fire with that smoke. It's pretty bad. It's tempting, though. In a litigious world, we think we can do everything with law. But even if you get stuff brought down, it's probably already damaged. People can cross-post. People can grab the content from Wayback Machine. Negative reactions, especially if you go ahead and have something like a practice or an agency or a firm. Posting fake reviews or doing AstroTurf or infiltrating online communities without being transparent as to your motives. Firstly, it's illegal. Secondly, people have figured it out, and if you haven't already done it, and if you haven't been doing it for 10 years, you probably don't know how to do it in such a savvy way that you can get away with it, so don't even try. You'll get caught up in an arms race. When the other side, quote-unquote, realizes what you're doing, they're going to up the ante, and you're going to have a Cuban Missile Crisis of review. And there's always the nuclear option, which is going ahead and people doing an online backlash, tweeting about the fact that you are posting anyway. And then commenting on attack blogs, forums. I always recommend counter messaging. If you see something that's going terribly wrong, write your own content on your own site to make sure that you can counteract that content. But if there is a witch hunt going on in a message board or forum, do not engage. It's just not worthy. It's just, don't even get your friends and family to go in and help you. However, on the other hand, if anybody ever says something nice about you on blogs or forums or even Reddit or anything, if people are saying nice things about you, just go in there as yourself and comment. But do not participate in negative conversation unless you have the ability to transcend blowing up and freaking out and getting yourself into bigger problems. Best practices, there we go. H&M does an amazing job. H&M actively participates. It's called Unified Approach across multiple venues. They have an amazingly optimized website. They have active Twitter platforms. They participate across the board. They participate on YouTube. Believe it or not, YouTube is a community. YouTube isn't just a place to dump videos. When you participate in an integrated, unified across platform approach, you need to make sure that you don't fire and forget, that you don't create a slurry of ghost towns, and that you participate in the conversation that happens there. This is a great ORM is a great argument for creating a social media engagement policy with your company, because it's not just about flirty chat with people who might or might not like you and answering silly questions. There's actually a secondary effect of participating online, and it is controlling your top 20 results. Prevention is more effective and less expensive than treatment. This is the plumber rule, which is to say that calling your plumber when you hear a couple knockings in your pipes is much better than going ahead and calling your plumber at 3 o'clock in the morning, Thanksgiving morning, when your pipes burst. Control as many search results as possible. If you can control all 10, and you can. I mean, search for Chris Abraham. I control like 5 pages. I don't mind sharing those top 5 pages with the amazing director Chris Abraham up in Canada, but I am not vulnerable in that space, and that happened over time with a lot of work. Do not click on the negative stuff anybody's talking to you about. If you are not already H&M, every click that anybody does in search on a negative result is going to juice it up, if you will. Because if it's a low trafficked search, then any click is going to affect it a lot. And here's something that nobody ever talks about. If you are a member of any of Google's services, you are connected through your address book, through Google+, through everything, so that when you participate in search, all of your friends will get a little bit of your vibe. And then be proactive with online reviews. It's very important. Number 3 is really important because Google abhors a vacuum, so do not allow your search results to not be defined by your voice. If you must, write leaves of grass. But you need to participate because Google likes pre-preparing food. It's got a freezer full of lasagna, frozen lasagna, and if Google can't find the lasagna that it's searching for, it cooks stuff fresh up, and oftentimes it gets really creative with what it has in the pantry. And Google abhors a vacuum. You don't want to give Google a vacuum. Some of the things you can do: get domain names, fill out all your industry profiles, maximize your investment on Facebook pages, Google Plus business pages, LinkedIn business pages, your own pages, start a blog, try to figure out a Pinterest, and engage in social media, because now with the recent algorithms, your connectivity and your reciprocal connectivity with your social groups, very important indicators. And don't forget, forums, groups, listservs, these things are talking about you. You have to dig deeper. Don't be lazy. Read the blog post from today on Biznology. Building a good reputation is not easy. Start now. Care about sentiment. Don't call them just, morons. Be proactive. You need to interact with potential future and current stakeholders. And you need to do reputation management not just for your own brand, but for all the people in the company. Get their domain names, create foundation sites for them, create content sites for them. It's worthwhile. The worst thing is that your C-suite domain names get taken and mocked. Best practices: get your domain name, set it up into a website, make it more than just brochureware. Make sure that it has categories that Google can go ahead and understand. Create a blog, generate positive press. You can very easily, with an integrated PR strategy, take advantage of what your PR team and communication team is already doing. That copy is beautiful, especially if you can propagate it online. And go into your giant box of tricks and get all of your content out historically as far back as you can go, because the more content that's online about you, the better. Engage in social media. Like I said, YouTube is a community. Twitter, Facebook, Flickr is a community. Keep track of all those places. People interact with you, and if they decide that they want to ask you a question on Flickr and you never go there, they're going to get frustrated with that. Fill out your profile completely. Don't be afraid of including your own personal information as long as you are smart about it. If people can find you. Also, Google abhors pronouns, so anytime you have a chance of using your keyword phrase, do it. Don't say we, he, she, it, I, they. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And thank you. Frank?
All right, Chris, thanks. Before we go to the questions, I'm sure, wanted to make sure to say that our attendees have a much stronger idea how to fix our online reputation. And it looks like we didn't answer every question, which is good, because we have several that are waiting. I'd like to remind our audience that it's not too late to ask your own question by typing into the questions box in your GoToWebinar controls. Before we get to that first question, though, we need to thank our sponsors again. Barn Raisers, digital marketing and social media solutions company that builds brands using community and the proven principles of relationship marketing. Brick Marketing, a full-service SEO solutions company that increases website visitors. Marketing Pilgrim, the internet and social media marketing news blog. And Reputation.com. Don't let the internet scare off potential customers. Improve what people see when they search for your business. Now, on to questions. The first one comes from Sean. And he says, Chris, for those of us who have been online for some time and have significant spheres, backlinks, articles, et cetera, what might a person, entity, or organization do to manage the vast amount of content that exists online and potentially in some that's potentially less than ideal?
Wow. Well, that's a great question, and I think I have an answer for that, although I must say I do not have any personal experience with it, but when I was up in Manhattan last week, I had drinks with a friend of mine from Burson Marsteller named David Rosen, and he recommended two really great new products. One is called Sprinkler, and it's SPRINKLR.com, and the other one is Spreadfast, SPREDFAST.com. They're kind of like tools that help you, dashboards that help you manage all of your different social media profiles, bringing them into one place. A lot of us who are less fancy than Burson do a hodgepodge of Hootsuite, bringing everything into there and sharing it with as many hands that are as available. One really valuable thing is just your very basic Google Alerts, just to make sure that nothing sneaks up on you. And then I just do a lot of hand checking on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google+, and I do a lot of hand checking. If you've watched this webinar, you are entitled to do as much vanity Google searching as you like. I hope that answers your question.
All right, great. Another question we have, are there any social sites that have kind of more clout or more juice? I'm sorry to use the word clout. I don't know if that's going to set anybody off. Have more juice with regard to Google, that they pay more attention to, that you should really be paying attention to yourself?
Well, ever since Google has, or Twitter has cut off Google, and because Facebook in many ways is a walled garden, a lot of people are thinking that maybe Google Plus has magic juice, but there's still, it's not an organic place to participate. Google makes it hard to participate on Google Plus. Their read-write API doesn't allow writing, so you can't send an Instagram directly to Google Plus. But if you want to invest in some place like a Google Plus profile or a Google Plus brand or business page, be sure to do everything. I believe that there's an info page. If you're going to commit to Google, go to, my friend J.D. Lassica sent me a link to a page that allows you to tell Google what blogs you're associated with, all that kind of other stuff. If anybody knows where that is, if you would tweet it with the hashtag BizRep, I'd love to share that. But I would make sure with everything, give as much personal, corporate, etc. data as possible. And I think LinkedIn is always at the top of Google, so I would assume that maximizing your LinkedIn profile and also requesting a vanity URL, like instead of having linkedin.com/in/Chris-Abraham/12345, mine is linkedin.com/in/Chris Abraham. So a lot of people do the cursory input into these sites over a weekend, but you need to keep on going back because they always add more privacy settings. They always add more stuff that you can contribute to and add to. I would go back and I would revise all of your properties and make sure everything's up to date, all links are viable, and all copy is current. Thank you.
Great. One last question, because we're a little bit after 11:30, but questions coming in, so that's good. If at that moment that you screw up, where you know you hit the send button and you really shouldn't have, what should be your immediate? Do you have any type of immediate course of action, or is it just kind of let it happen and then respond, or how do you recommend to go about that if you know you made a mistake, you did something you shouldn't have online?
Well, the first thing I worked for a company that did that in a major way, and the biggest problem before you do anything wrong, make sure that you separate church from state, that you I know it's tempting to keep your personal profiles and your professional profiles in the same Hootsuite, campaign, interface, but don't do it because it's a trick. You need to make sure that you click the right thing and take the right thing, click off, and blah, blah, blah. That's where most of the mistakes happen. If you fire and make a mistake, you probably have 5 seconds that you can go in and delete it before the entire world follows you. Everybody is not a Detroit automaker. Everybody is not, unless you're a Fortune 50 company, even a Fortune 500 company, or unless you are in a nonprofit that's under scrutiny, or you are a politico, people generally are not going to be looking at you, waiting for you to mess up. So Twitter needs to be faster. Facebook and Google Plus, pretty easy to delete that. However, if the cat's out of the bag and anybody has started retweeting, you need to get right in there and you need to own it. You can't let it get out of control. You need to be human. You need to throw yourself at the mercy of the court. And you also need to go behind the scenes and reach out to the people who are making this noise and see if you can set up an interview, you can send up a back channel conversation, because honestly at this point you need to become as human as possible. Secondly, if you do what I do, which is making mistakes almost constantly, then at some point the result of being bombastic is that you train your audience to kind of roll their eyes as opposed to doing anything else. So if you train them to expect if you train them to expect you to be human, you will have much more slack in your leash.
All right, great. Well, I guess my takeaway on this is that probably don't have to worry because maybe people really aren't hanging on every word that I have to say. That's disappointing. But I think that's all the time we do have for today, because we're at a few minutes past 11:30. We want to be respectful of times. And thanks, Chris, for great ideas, and thanks especially to our audience for your participation and questions. If you do have any questions that you didn't get answered today, you can email your question to Eileen. That's EILEEN at MikeMoranGroup.com. And so be sure to get them to Chris for an answer. Later this week, we'll send you all a link to the recording of the webinar so you can listen to it again and share with others. And we also invite you to mark your calendars for our next Biznology webinar. It's all e-commerce, how the social, local, mobile web affects sales online and offline. And that's scheduled for 11 a.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. on January 15th in 2013, which is just around the corner. Thanks again, Chris, for your presentation today, and thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you in January. Have a great holiday season and a great new year.